Today is the 8th session on your course of performance evaluation and management. In our previous two sessions, we discussed some methods of performance evaluation. Still, we are in the methods of performance evaluation. Today, we are going to discuss about the one of most popular performance evaluation method, that is 360-degree feedback performance appraisal method. I think you are ready. Performance evaluation and management. This is the eighth session on performance evaluation and management. It's about performance evaluation methods. Today we are going to basically focus on the 360-degree feedback method, performance appraisal method, basically under the following areas: introduction, process of 360-degree feedback system, guideline for successfulness of the 360-degree feedback method system, and advantages and the disadvantages. 360-degree or 360 is you can get some clear idea about the 360 from the mathematics perspective. If you think you have some object and you view that object from one perspective, that is not complete view about that object, but in here 360 means all around you is the object. Your mother have one particular view about you, and your father have another view about you. Your sister have another view about you, and your brother have another. Your peers, classmate, or university friends have another view about you. But if you ask from one person about you, as example, I ask from your mother how about you. She told you is the good son or good daughter according to mother's perspective, but it is not at all. Therefore, this is trying to get the complete picture about the employee performance. This is introduction part of about the 360-degree feedback method. 360-degree feedback can be defined as the systematic collection and feedback of performance data on an individual or group derived from a number of the stakeholders and their performance. Especially in here, we are focusing on the from whom we are going to collect evidence about the performance, employees' performance. Okay. For that, we are collecting evidence or feedback about the employee's performance from multiple sources, number of stakeholders. As example, in production, garment manufacturing organization or any other production company that produce a physical good, there are several departments: production department, marketing department, HR department, IT department. Likewise, there are a number of employees. We assume we want to collect information about the HR department employees who are involving or engaging work in the HR department. How we collect, from whom we can collect information about the employee performance. We can collect that information from the several stakeholders, especially from the production employees, how that HR officer is working in your organization. From the marketing manager or from the production manager, we can collect information how that HR officers provide some services to your department. Likewise, we can collect more information or the same information from multiple sources by using this 360-degree feedback method. In here, there are two key assumptions why we use multiple sources. It helps to increase or develop the self-awareness. Self-awareness means the conscious knowledge about one's own characteristics and feelings. If employee is aware or have conscious knowledge about what they are doing, that is very important. In psychology, it is the first step of the personality development. How you know about yourself. If we process this 360-degree feedback method, that will helpful to increase or enhance the self-awareness. If someone have the higher level of self-awareness, that directly affected to the maximum individual performance. If they have proper awareness about what they are doing and what they think, how they decide, likewise these key aspects, that employee can get the maximum outcomes from their behaviors. This 360-degree feedback method basically assume that this multiple sources, feedback from the multiple sources will help to increase their self-awareness. Then that self-awareness is directly or help to increase their individual performance. And on the other side, that awareness will help to develop their managerial skills and leadership qualities, because as the part of self-awareness, they have proper knowledge, conscious knowledge about what they are thinking, what decision they are taking. Therefore, that awareness will help to develop their managerial skills and the leadership skills. The main aspects of the 360-degree feedback method is feedback is collected from the multiple sources, multi-sources. That multi-sources feedback have lot of benefits to the person who are performing the job, as well as the final stage, that overall feedback will help to enhance overall performance of the organization. As example, if we take one person, individual, that individual can collect feedback. Job is not isolate work. They are working in a organizational setting. That organizational setting, if anyone working in an organizational setting, they should interact or deal with some other parties as well. Therefore, we can collect feedback from those parties. The first party, we can collect information from the superior. As example, if we are in an organization, there is a chief executive officer, CEO, or sometimes general manager at the top managerial level. There are 4 main managers, functional managers, who are directly reported to the chief executive officer, production manager, marketing manager, and HR manager, and the finance manager. Likewise, if we are evaluating the finance manager's performance, we can collect feedback from the superior, that means CEO or general manager. If we collect feedback about the finance manager, we can collect another type of feedback from their peers. Peers mean they also working in a similar working situation, working status. In my example, there are 4 functional managers, finance manager with the finance manager. There is a HR manager and production manager and marketing manager. Out of these 3 managers, marketing, production, and HR managers, we can get feedback from 1 or 2 peers. That is the meaning of peers, who are working with a similar working status, subordinates. In my example, under the finance manager, there are 2 finance executive or 2 accountant. We can collect another type of feedback from these 2 subordinates who are directly reporting to the person. Then another type of feedback we can collect from the internal customer. Who are the internal customer is we'll discuss. Performance data. This is generally focused on the feedback. This feedback from the multiple sources. Basically, we can identify the 4 sources can collect feedback about the employee's performance. Superior is the individuals from the person to whom they report. In my example, finance manager is directly reporting is the individual who is directly reporting to the general manager. On the other side, subordinator. These subordinators are directly reported to the person. In my example, there are two finance executives who are directly reporting to the finance manager. Peers who could be team member or colleagues in other parts of the organization. In my example, there may be HR manager or production manager or marketing manager. Internal customer is the member of your organization who consumes service provided by your job. In my example, who are the internal customers to the finance manager? You're already aware about the finance management. In each and every department, there is some financial portion that is called petty cash. Petty cash. For that, finance manager should allocate some amount of money to that department. Each and every other department have separate person is assigned to manage their petty cash. We can collect feedback about the finance manager from petty cash handler or the person who are responsible to handle the petty cash in production department, or sometime HR department, or sometime petty cash handler in the marketing department. Likewise, internal customer is a member of your organization who consumes service provided by your job that aren't available to external customers. Another two example is mentioned in my slide. Information technology department, when we assume that there is a IT department, in many cases, an information technology department serves primarily internal customers. IT department may provide a service that represents an internal customer service function for technical services such as software updates or installation. Likewise, some technical assistance are provided by the IT department, but that assistance is not to the external customers. If anyone from out of the organization, they are not willing to do their software support to the external customers. On the other side, human resource manager, when we considering about the human resource, certain aspects of human resources may be viewed as a service to the business unit. For example, business unit may be viewed as a customer of recruiting services. From the HR perspective, recruitment is the key function. Production manager or production supervisor may be one internal customer of your recruitment function. Under the production manager, there are number of supervisors in production department. Due to the different reason, several reasons, sometime absenteeism or sometime turnover, high turnover, they expect to hire immediately new person to their vacancies. As HR manager or HR executive who are responsible to recruit the person, that person should respond the request to fill the production employees vacancies in the organization. In that perspective, in that case, production supervisor or team leader of that particular production team is the internal customer to that HR executive who are responsible to recruiting employees. Okay. I like to use a continued example to explain this 360-degree feedback. In next, we move to the 360-degree feedback process. For that, we develop some hypothetical organizational structure. Top of the organization, there is a chief executive officer. Under the chief executive officer, there are 4 managers: production manager, marketing manager, HR manager, and finance manager. There are 4 managers: production manager, marketing manager, HR manager, and the finance manager. Under the HR manager, there are 2 HR executive, HR executive 1 and HR executive 2. Okay. Under the production manager, there are 4 supervisors: supervisor 1, supervisor 2, supervisor 3, and supervisor 4. There are 4 supervisors under the production manager who are directly reporting to the production manager. There are 4 supervisors. In here, this is the basic part of the organizational hierarchy. Out of these several positions, we are going to do evaluation of the job of HR manager in here. Okay. This is the process of 360-degree feedback performance appraisal process. The first step is establish objectives, decide on whom performance feedback should be recipients. Third one, decide on whom will give the feedback, decide on the criteria on which performance feedback will be given. The fifth step, decide on the method of collecting the data. The sixth step, decide on data analysis and presentation. The sixth one, plan an initial implementation program, that means the pilot project. The eighth step is analyze the outcome of the pilot project. Ninth one, plan and implement the full program. The last step is monitor and evaluate. We'll go through the one by one step. The first one is establish objectives. In our systematic process of performance evaluation, the basic process of performance appraisal in our model, it was developed by the senior professor Upatha. It is also the first step is establish objectives. In there also I discuss the establish objectives. In here also it is important to establish objectives. We are collecting seriously, we are going to collect performance information, performance feedback from several sources, multi-sources. Therefore, this is the serious process that try to achieve several objectives. In here, okay, it is important to define exactly what 360-degree feedback expected to achieve. This objective can be established with concern with the basic purposes of performance evaluation. We already discussed the purposes of performance evaluation under your second chapter, that may development administrative purposes or development purposes under the management purposes, or sometime from the perspective of employee, that may informative purposes. When we selecting from whom we are going to collect feedback about the employee's performance, it is better to should have clear reason why you collect feedback from this party. When establishing 360-degree objectives, that objective can set with the feedback generator. In our example, if we are going to do evaluation on the job of HR manager, we can collect feedback from this selected person. From the superior perspective, we can collect from the CEO. We can collect feedback from the HR executive one from the perspective of subordinate. We can collect feedback from the supervisor 4 as the internal customer. We can collect feedback from the finance manager from the perspective of peers who are working in a similar working situation. Now we are going to do evaluation, collect performance evaluation on the job of human resource manager, from whom we are going to collect feedback from the CEO as the superior perspective, from HR executive 1 from the subordinate perspective, from the production supervisor 4 that is from the internal customer, from the finance manager as one of the peers to the job of HR manager. Now we can establish objectives why we collect information or feedback from the CEO to identify strengths and weaknesses from the perspective of their individual contribution to the organizational success. Then the second party, we are going to collect feedback about the HR manager from finance manager as the peer perspective. Why you collect, which type of feedback you are going to collect from the finance manager in terms of to evaluate their interpersonal relationships with the finance manager. It is very important to the overall organization as a team, as well as it is very important to identify the development purpose to the employee to develop their interpersonal skills. We collect information from the production supervisor 4 as the internal customer, who is the leader of the large number of employees. Under the production supervisor 4, there are 100 of production employees. Therefore, who is the main internal customer? That's why we select production supervisor 4 to collect feedback about the HR manager. Therefore, we can establish objectives why we collect feedback from the production supervisor 4. Likewise, but the main thing that objectives should align with the purposes of performance evaluation. That means why organizations attempt to do the performance evaluation. Under the purposes of performance evaluation, organization can derive the general objective of the objectives of the performance evaluation. Implement the 360-degree feedback process. With the evaluator or feedback generator, we can establish specific objectives. As example, employee superior. In our example, employee is the HR manager, superior is the CEO. And establish objectives towards the departmental goals or organizational goals. In our example, it is better to mention towards the organizational goals. That means the reason is CEO is responsible to the overall organizational goals. Therefore, HR manager and we collect feedback from CEO about the HR manager's performance. The objective is towards the contribution to the overall organizational success given by the HR manager. Then the second, employee subordinate. In our example, employee is the HR manager, subordinate is the HR executive one. Towards the, why we collect feedback from the subordinate, the objective is towards work or focused outcomes deliverable. How HR manager is taking decision, work related decision, how they are taking right decision at the right time or not. With that decision, HR executives are working or the implementation part. At the implementation part, they are implementing the decision taken by the HR manager. Therefore, they have real experience on that deliverability. Therefore, we can collect some feedback from the subordinate. That is the objective why we collect from the subordinate. Peers. In our example, the employee is the HR manager, peers is the finance manager. Why we collect feedback from the finance manager? With that information, we can identify the link between finance department and the HR department, especially to pay employee salary and other financial incentives, remunerations. It is very important to maintain this proper relationship between finance department and the HR department. Therefore, that's why we collect some feedback from finance manager about the HR manager. Employee and internal customer. In our example, employee is the HR manager. Internal customer is the production supervisor number 4, who is the largest work leader in our production department. There are a number of employees who are reporting to the supervisor 4 towards the quality of service to the business unit. Production supervisor number 4, who is responsible to the 40% of total production of the company. Therefore, it is very important to provide the high quality service to that production team. From the production supervisor 4, we can collect feedback about the HR managers' performance and their quality of service. That's why we collect information from the production supervisor 4. On the other side, out of these 4 main sources, we can do the self-evaluation. It means the HR manager is evaluating themselves, their performance. Why? They do evaluation on their self, their performance towards the performance and individual competency revisit. By self-evaluation, they can identify their strengths and weaknesses. That is very important to the HR manager. Then the second step, decide on whom feedback should receive. It means when we considering our organization, hypothetical organization, we have several options. We can do performance evaluation by using 360-degree feedback method for these all managerial employees, or sometimes the selected employees on whom we are going to do the evaluation. Actually, this is already discussed under the policies of performance evaluation. We have several options. Sometimes we can do evaluation on the selected group of people by using 360 method. Sometimes all the employees. It is better to use all the employees, but by using 360-degree feedback method, it is very serious and complicated method. And sometimes that may take more time or very time consuming if our organization not getting some technical like software support. If we do the performance evaluation manually by using 360-degree feedback method, it is very time consuming. Based on the several factors, we can decide several. We have several options. Sometimes we can do the performance evaluation to all the employees of our organization by using 360-degree. So sometimes we can do the evaluation for selected employees only. But the best option is do the performance appraisal for all the employees. But due to several factors, reasons, we have some other options. Okay. In our example, the first, the feedback receiver or recipient is the HR manager. That is the selected feedback receiver. Third decision, decide on who will give the feedback. Now, after getting the previous decision under the step 2, now we have clear idea about who are the feedback receiver. It means which job or which employees we are going to evaluate by using 360-degree feedback method. In here, for selected employees, we should decide which employees or which party will give the feedback on selected employees. The feedback receiver is HR manager in our organization. This is the feedback recipient. The feedback generator is who will give the feedback. Under the third step, we should decide. Under the second step, we decided to do the evaluation on the job of HR manager. Under the third step, we should decide on each job who are the feedback generator. In our example, the feedback generators, there are 4 main feedback generators on the job of HR manager. The first is CEO, the second is finance manager, third is HR executive 1, and the last is production supervisor number 4. That decision should be taken under the step 3 of our process. The fourth step, before that, under the third step, if we decided these are the feedback generator, a decision will also have to be made on whether HR staff or outside consultants should take part in helping managers to make use the feedback. It means if we decided to do the performance evaluation by using 360-degree method, now we have selected to do the evaluation of the job of HR manager. The feedback generators are 4, but sometime or most of the time, the HR manager can't go to the CEO and collect feedback about himself, about his performance. But it is not practical. The HR manager can't go to the production supervisor number 4 and collect feedback about his performance by himself. It is not practical. Therefore, sometimes it is required to give some assistance from the HR staff or sometime outside party should give the support to do that part. Most of the time, this performance appraisal should coordinate with the HR staff. One of the HR staff member can assign to do the evaluation, or sometime if we do all the employees evaluation, we can allocate several employees to do that. That employees are responsible to collect feedback about the particular selected evaluee on the evaluee's performance. In our example, there are 5 people. One of the evaluee who is HR manager, other 4 employees, related persons, feedback who are the feedback generator, CEO, finance manager, HR executive 1, and the supervisor number 4. To coordinate this feedback process, we can assign another person to do that evaluation, to collect this feedback from all the feedback generators. Then in here, a further decision will need to be made on whether or not the feedback should be anonymous. Most of the time, it is usually is anonymous, nameless. The receiver is don't know who are the feedback generator. That is, it is usually is anonymous. For that, the coordination part, another support from the outside consultants or HR staff, member of this HR staff is needed to maintain this situation. The fourth step, decide on the criteria on which feedback will be given. In our example, we are going to collect feedback about the job of HR manager. To collect feedback about the job of HR manager, we are going to ask some specific questions from the CEO. In our previous performance appraisal method, there are several performance appraisal methods. Sometimes it may be specific questions, multiple choice, or checklist method, or likewise, there are several questions mode we can use. But before doing the evaluation, now we have the specific objectives. Why we collect information from the CEO about the HR manager. With that objective, we can derive the main performance criteria. It means on which factor we are going to ask questions. On which factor we are going to collect information from the CEO. On which factors we are going to collect information from the finance manager. That is differ from the questions asked from the CEO. We should have separate set of questions to ask from the CEO. We should have another separate set of questions from the production supervisor 4. That is differ from the questions asked by the CEO or HR executive 1. Therefore, we should have clear idea about on which factor we are going to ask questions from the CEO. We are going to ask questions from the finance manager. We are going to ask questions on which factor. We are going to ask questions from the HR executive 1. On which factor, on which criteria we are going to highlight it when we are asking questions from the production supervisor 4. Why we select this person as the internal customer? We have another objective to achieve by getting feedback from the production supervisor 4. Therefore, we should identify which factor, under which factor we are going to collect feedback. CEO, it is followership, and the organizational contribution may be the two main criteria. When we asking questions from the finance manager about the HR manager, maybe the interpersonal skills as the fear. When we are asking questions about the HR manager from the HR executive one, that questions or that criteria highly focus on the leadership skills and the decision making ability as the leader. Then when we are asking questions or when we collecting feedback from the production supervisor 4, it should be highlighted the service quality of the HR department. That questions definitely not equal, which ask from the HR executive 1 and ask from the finance manager. Therefore, we should clearly identify these are the factors. We are going to collect information from the each and every stakeholders or feedback generators. Then decide on which criteria. Sometimes this criteria is maybe existing competency model. It means in our overall performance management process or performance evaluation and management process, we already decided the performance criteria and standards. Under the third or fourth chapter, we already discussed performance criteria and standards. If we already have the performance criteria and standards, they can use that existing competency model. It means existing performance criteria and standards to ask questions from the several stakeholders. Or sometimes it may take the form of list of headings for development. Sometimes you need to newly develop criteria. If you don't have the existing performance criteria, you should develop. When you are developing new criteria, that may be a list of headings. In my example, it's also the interpersonal skills should be highlighted when we are asking from the finance manager. Subordination should be highlighted when we are asking from the CEO. Or service quality should be highlighted when we are asking from the production supervisor number 4. Or leadership quality should be highlighted when we are asking from the HR executive 1. Likewise, clearly the model should fit the culture, values, and type of the work carried out in the organization. It is not important whether the using existing competency model or existing criteria or newly developed. It should fit with the culture, values, and type of the work. If we use existing competency model or existing performance criteria and standards, we should review and revisit about existing performance evaluation criteria. Then should ensure that those criteria should fit with the organization values, organizational objectives, and organizational culture. Okay, sometime performance management system we can adapt from the from getting from the software packages. It is like we can copy in a performance management system of another same organization if we have, but it also acceptable to start this 360 appraisal method, but that criteria should fit with the cultures, values, and the type of the work. And on the other side, when we select, when we are decided the feedback generator who will give the feedback about the job performance, our questions or our criteria should match with that feedback generator. As an example, we are not going to ask questions from CEO about the HR manager's leadership. We are not going to ask questions or questions that are directly linked with the criteria of subordination. It means how they align with the orders given by their superior that may not aware the supervisor for. If we ask that question from the supervisor for, that may not effective. Definitely that question not effective to ask production supervisor for. Therefore, our performance evaluation criteria should match with from whom we are going to collect feedback. It is also very important. We are going to ask questions about the interpersonal relationship from finance manager. But if we ask some leadership qualities from the finance manager, that definitely not effective. It should be asked from the HR executive one, based on whom we are going to ask questions, who are the feedback generator. It is also very important to decide criteria. The relevant criteria should match with the relationship, working relationship. This is superior and subordinate between CEO and between CEO and HR manager. There are superior and subordinate relationship. Our question should match with that relationship. Otherwise, our evaluation not be effective. Decide on the method of collecting data. Basically, this is highlighted developing the questionnaire. Sometime we should develop the performance evaluation questionnaire. That questionnaire, before developing that performance evaluation questionnaire, we should decide on which method we can develop performance appraisal questionnaire, or sometimes several questionnaires are used to evaluate the same job. In our example, at least 4 questionnaires we needed to evaluate the job of HR manager. this questionnaire is very important at the 360-degree feedback process. We cannot use the same questionnaire to distribute all 4 parties. Same questionnaire we cannot give to the finance manager and CEO and supervisor 4 and HR executive 1 to evaluate the job of HR manager. Therefore, when we implementing the 360-degree feedback process, is very important to designing the questionnaire. We have several options. We can design questionnaire in-house. It means we can develop our own questionnaire to ask questions. That is actually most practical, because based on the organizational requirement, we can develop our own questionnaire. Or sometimes this is more critical part of the evaluation. Therefore, we get some expert knowledge, expert input to do that work from the consultants. Or sometimes in practical world, 360-degree feedback performance appraisal is doing via the software packages. Sometimes we can develop our questionnaire by using the software providers questionnaire. But if we develop in-house questionnaire, we can develop as per our requirement. If we use another 2 options by getting consultant service or by using questionnaires from the software provider, it could be adapted as our requirement. It should come in as our purposes and objectives to do the performance appraisal. Otherwise, that questionnaire may not be effective. Finally, overall effort may be not effective because we are gathering information, we are collecting feedback based on the wrong criteria and the wrong question. The 6th step, decide on data analysis and presentation. In here, it is also very important. The basic purpose of performance appraisal is collecting information to judge. It means to take important decision about the employee as well as the overall organization. If we are taking decision on wrong information, our entire effort may be wasted, not for the success. Therefore, now after having complete questionnaire, now we have data, but this data from multiple sources. This data from the person who are not proper awareness or deep knowledge about the performance appraisal. Sometimes there may be wrong data or sometimes useless data. Likewise, in between this useless data, some important data is also there. Therefore, we should analyze which data is important to take decision. For that, data analysis is very important because we collect very important data from multiple sources. If we have multiple sources data, now we should be careful to analyze. Issue clearing by removing the issue clear data by removing useless data and transforming, modifying or identifying model of the data. Then we should discover the useful information. For that, we should be careful, or we should actually attempt to do the data analysis. Then we can do the effective information presentation. Most organizations installing 360-degree feedback to do this data analysis and presentation, they are purchasing the packages, or sometimes they can get consultancy service. But the main attempt, it is very important to keep it as simple as possible. Otherwise, that information cannot be understood to the decision makers. That information may not be effective to the organization. The final results will fail. The seventh step is plan the initial implementation program. It means now we have the questionnaire and the data analysis option. With that, now we are going to do the pilot study about 360-degree program. Let's describe to pilot the process. Then they distribute the selected feedback generators, then collect data, but they all have awareness this is the pilot study, and this communication is very important. They should train why you should provide this feedback, why it is important to you and why it is important to the feedback receiver. Then when you training these feedback generators, in our example there are 4 parties: CEO, finance manager, HR executive 1 and supervisor 4. You should develop clear idea about this, the benefits of this process. Then they will actively involve to the process. The 8th step, after pilot project, you have some feedback about the process, not about the employee performance. Now you can get some feedback about your questionnaire, about your process, sometimes the feedback generator. It is not, may not be effective. Sometimes the feedback generator should be changed, shift to another party, or sometimes there may be errors with the coordination party who are coordinating the 360-degree feedback process. Likewise, you can identify these all problems and you can attempt to solve these problems after having the pilot project. Then the 9th step is plan and implement the full program. Actually, this is the appraisal stage. Now you have corrected 360-degree program. Now you can easily implement without problem, because problems are were solved that was identified in your pilot project. Then you can communicate with each other parties and you can train with experience. Then you can get maximum outcome of the 360-degree feedback process. The 10th step is monitor and evaluate. You should review and renewal your process with the environmental changes, with the job changes. Sometimes some persons are terminating or leaving from your organization. Some newcomers are there. With that changes, you should monitor always this 360-degree feedback process. That is essential to continuity of the 360-degree feedback process. Then some guidelines for the successful implementation of the 360-degree feedback process. Active support of the top management. Without getting the active support of the top management, this serious process cannot be implemented in any organization. The top management support, it is essential to success. They should be the take part of this process. Sometime the top management will be a feedback generator. As our example also, the general manager or CEO is the one of the feedback generator about the human resource manager. They are the part of our evaluation process. Sometimes they may be receiving about their decision. They should, another duty of the top management, they should encourage anyone to involve in this 360-degree feedback process. That is essential. Commitment everywhere is the second component. There are long process of implementing 360-degree feedback process. When we are implementing this process, we are starting with the high commitment, but at the middle and at the end, our commitment is not as the first step. We should commit to implement from started point to the end. Then the use feedback data as the base for development. In here, 360-degree feedback, we invest huge resources, large amount of resources to generate this feedback. But after having very important information about the job performance, that feedback is not used as we expect. That is not good. Therefore, that feedback should link with the development purposes and the administrative purposes. If we generate useless information, that is huge wastage for the organization. Another very important component of the successful 360-degree feedback process is questionnaire item. I already mentioned the questionnaire is the key component of this 360-degree feedback process. If we use wrong questionnaire, our feedback will be wrong, useless. Therefore, it is very important the questionnaire item should fit with the required aspects. Sometimes that aspects may be traits, behaviors, results of the employee that should fit with the requirement of the organization. The next several things, questionnaire can be related to actual events, experience. That questionnaire item should link with the from whom we are going to ask this question. Without that link, questionnaire may not be effective. Well delivered communication and training programs. This is very long process and multi sources. Evaluation is not just from one party. Therefore, communication between these all parties, and to do this complicated work, training on that, it is very important. No one feels threatened by the process. If HR executive feel, if I give the genuine feedback on the HR manager's job performance, that will threaten to my job. If HR executive feels like that, they will not give the real feedback. Therefore, that fear should remove from the process. We should ensure if you give the genuine feedback, that will not threaten to your job anywhere. That secure should ensure with the process. On the other very important aspect, it is also about the questionnaire. Questionnaire are relatively easy to complete. This questionnaire item is more lengthy and very difficult to understand. That feedback may be wrong, sometimes with the misunderstanding. Therefore, it should be relatively easy to complete to the feedback generated. Bureaucracy is minimized. It is also very important aspect. Bureaucracy means the exclusively complicated administrative process. If there is a complicated administrative process, you cannot understand who are the superior, who are the subordinate, who are the peers, who are the internal customers, and if that bureaucracy, it is very difficult to implement the 360-degree feedback process. If you have the simple organizational hierarchy, Sinhala Niladhari Vadaya, it should be minimized in your organization. If it is better to implement 360-degree feedback process. These are some advantages of the 360-degree feedback process. Individuals get a broader perspective. I think you are clear. It is not one perspective. It is all about your performance. When we are evaluating one particular person, it is about the overall, all around the people. Increase awareness and relevance of competencies. That we gather feedback, it means information from all the relevant parties. That all information will enhance their awareness, consciousness, and the knowledge about themselves. Increase awareness by senior management that they too have development needs. Senior management is also take part of the 360-degree feedback process. Therefore, that feedback mutually benefited If the senior management have some opportunity to give the feedback on their subordinate, on the other side, subordinate get feedback from the senior managers, then the subordinate receiver can revisit and think about what areas they should develop in their job, gaining acceptance of the principles of multiple stakeholders as the measure of performance. Actually, this is the real advantage of the 360-degree feedback, multiple stakeholder. Performance is not just one perspective. It is all. It is not just traits. It is not just only the behaviors. It is not just only the results. From the multiple stakeholders, we can measure overall performance of the employee from all the perspectives. Then another advantage is encouraging more open feedback. We are not ending just receiving one feedback from the one party. We are open feedback for several parties, multiple stakeholders, reinforcing the desired competencies of the business. As the final results, overall business competencies will be enhanced. Provide a clear picture to senior management of individuals' real world. Some senior managers, they perceive this is just only one employee, but after having all the feedback from all the relevant parties, the top management can understand the real worth of the employee. Clarified to employees' critical performance aspects. In our example, HR manager, the aspects we are covering with 4 stakeholders. From finance manager, there are several aspects. From HR executive 1, there are another aspects. With that all information, HR manager can clarify the employee critical performance aspects. If we want to successfully in this position, we should develop these aspects, opens up feedback and gives people a more round view with the multiple feedback. Identify key development areas for individuals, a department and the organization as whole. With that multiple feedback, at the final stage, we can analyze as the overall organization and as a team and individual. Identifying strength that can be used to the best advantage of the business. Overall organizational strength we can identify by using the 360-degree feedback. A rounded view, individual, team and organization. Raise the self-awareness. I explained, supporting a climate of continuous improvement. Without the relationship between the proper relationship between all the parties, anyone cannot get the high rate of performance in this situation. Therefore, supporting a climate of continuous improvement is ensured by the 360-degree feedback process. Starting to improve climate model as measured through the survey. This survey is starting and improve this positive climate culture, organizational culture with the organization. The basic reason is why the organization is using this 360-degree feedback survey. Focused agenda for development for first line managers to discuss development issues. With that feedback, more important information, with that important information, all the line managers will discuss and identify the development issues. Perception of feedback as more valid and objective with the right questions of your questionnaire, the acceptance results and action required. Some disadvantages also there. If we seriously attempt to develop this system, some people not giving honest feedback, the final result will fail. The feedback is the key component of 360-degree method. People being put under stress in receiving or giving feedback. All the employees have opportunity to receiving feedback and giving feedback. But some people be put under stress. They are careless. Lack of action following feedback. After having feedback, right feedback, that information should be used to take right decision. But after having right feedback, the management do not motivated to use that information, feedback. That is another disadvantage. Over-reliance on technology. This process will time consuming if we not use the technology. If your organization use 360-degree method, it is most of the time you should use the technology. If you use the technology, you should rely with that technology. Too much bureaucracy. Most of the organization is system process or bureaucracy. That is the main disadvantages of the 360-degree method. I think you have clear idea about the 360-degree feedback method. I discuss introduction, process, 10 steps of process of 360-degree system, some basic guidelines for the successful 360-degree feedback method, and the advantages, then the final disadvantages. These are review questions you can answer. You can prepare short notes on the 360-degree feedback method, covering introduction, process, guidelines, advantages and disadvantages of the 360-degree method. These are my references. I think you can refer this material as well for further studies, and thank you very much to participate this session.